Mr. Wilcox, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I am going to start by making a motion to amend the agenda to add an executive session regarding the SRO MOU discussion. I spoke with Attorney Cieda Milan, and that was her recommendation, so that we can have the discussion in executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes,
Dr. Yarborough?
yes. Are we able to place that session higher in the meeting before 6:30 p.m. or?
It's my intent to add it right after public comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will vote to amend the agenda to include the discussion regarding the SRO MOU. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes,
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Students are not in. I am a yes as well. And so that item passes. And so we can move on to public participation. Dr. White, Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Madam President, at this time, there are no raised hands and no one from the audience.
Wow. Okay, I think that's a first.
I
So
agree.
far it's the first.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White and Dr. Joyner. And so then what I'll do is I will move that the New Haven Board of Education, I will move that we go into executive session to discuss the SRO MOU with legal counsel, and we will ask Attorney Cieda Milan to attend, and also Dr. Negron and Dr. White. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'm not sure because there's something on the screen. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you. Just a quick question. I have some questions around police conduct in the schools. Who would be able to answer those questions in executive session? Particularly around what legally they can and cannot do as police officers.
Attorney Cieda Milan will be in the executive session. We can't discuss anything at the moment until after we come out of an executive session and we go to vote.
I don't know if she could answer the police questions, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldson. Okay, seeing no further discussion, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. And Ms. Camacho emailed the executive session link. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, I'm sorry, this might be after the fact. Should Chief Reddick be in this meeting?
Is Chief Reddish? He's not, Chief Reddish is not here, but this is to discuss some of the legal, I guess the legalities of the MRU, and so Attorney Milan will discuss that. And I guess if we need Chief Reddish and we can't pull him in, then we may have to hold off.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Like I said, Ms. Camacho's emailed the executive session link, so we'll see you there. Okay, we are out of executive session and back in regular session. There were no votes in executive session. There is a motion to be made now, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, making a motion here, and that is I move that the New Haven Board of Education approve the SRO MOU negotiated with the New Haven Police Department, the terms of which were discussed in executive session. Moved further that the board authorize the board president to execute that MOU on behalf of the New Haven Board of Education.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted, first of all, I want to thank the committee that worked very hard to put this MOU together. Thank all of our representatives. I also appreciate their hard work. And I also appreciate the heartfelt answers that I received in executive session around some of the issues around the MOU that I had. And I want to vote for it. I certainly don't want to vote against it. But I'm a little concerned that the students aren't involved in this conversation, particularly since they were the ones that sort of raised this issue a year or so ago. So I'm going to abstain from voting on this item. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Any further discussion? Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I'll just say that I'm going to be voting in support of this tonight. We've had SROs in the schools for many years. I think that this memorandum of understanding helps really clarify those relationships. Also puts the superintendent in a position of authority as to who's in the schools, so that if there was issues, it very much clarifies who's making the decisions about removing of an SRO or relocating, et cetera, and training expectations and so on. And I share the concerns about student members not being here, but I think another thing that is addressed in this memorandum of understanding is that it is taking care of the recommendations that came out of the report, that at the time one of our student members was a member of that committee and is also listed as one of the ones that helped prepare the report. So I understand that concern, but I'm also still going to be voting in support of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote. Dr. Benitez?
Yes, just wanted to add that when we were provided with the survey information, the students and parents, but mostly students, were strongly in favor of having SROs in school. So, and felt that they had not experienced meetings where they were where they felt threatened by the SROs. So I have to support this. My experience as a parent in the New Haven Public Schools has always been positive in terms of that. And as a former activist, as a young person, I have never felt that the relationship with the SROs in our schools is anything similar to relationships I have had with police officers in demonstrations. So I've always felt that it is a more amicable relationship, and that kids, obviously by our surveys, are saying that they feel okay with them in schools.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Dr. Joyner?
Many of the SROs in the schools were graduates of New Haven Public Schools, and they also coached teams. They were active in fundraising activities on behalf of students. I think I can say this now that they're retired. Nancy Jackson and Doolin Williams and Tammy, I can't think of Tammy's last name, at New Horizons were outstanding SROs. They gave more than they got. And they were kids that graduated from our public school system. So I'm supporting this. I have grandchildren in the system, and I feel that SROs are there to protect them and guide them as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mayor Elicker?
I just wanted to add that the chief of police and our corporation council worked in collaboration with New Haven Public Schools, and we're all enthusiastic about this proposed MOU.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the item of the SROs. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Golton? Mr. Golton?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I
Oh,
can.
abstain.
Thank you. Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. And we will move on to the action items. First one being the approval of the board meeting minutes, the revised October 23rd, and the special meeting of October 31st. We'll make a motion for the October 31st meeting. Mr. Golton? You're muted, or I can't hear you. I can't figure out which.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna move those together. I was just asking for, to move them separately because I did not attend the special meeting.
Yes, are you making the motion to move one?
Thank you.
Oh,
So moved.
I guess not. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
A second? Okay, second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the revised October 23rd meeting minutes. Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Is there a motion for the special meeting of October 23rd?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. We'll vote on the October 31st meeting minutes. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Golton?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes.
Madam President. point of
Mr.
order.
Golton? Mhm.
don't think I've ever been in a meeting where both Dr. Benitez and I were both there in person. And I'm wondering if she really exists or.
Do you want me to pinch her?
Thank you, Madam President, for indulging me.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, personnel report, Dr. Negron.
Good evening. I'm hereby requesting approval of the personnel report. And before you do that, I wanted just to share some highlights. Just wanted to express my gratitude on behalf of the New Haven Public Schools to Gloria Lester Gibson, School Security Officer, who is retiring after 16 years of service to students and staff. And also express my gratitude to Andrew Naylor, Assistant Building Manager, School Custodian, who is also retiring after 17 years of service to the students and the staff.
Congratulations.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, I move that we approve the action items of the superintendent's personnel report.
Second.
Properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the action items of the personnel report. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and that item passes. And next item is the Finance and Operations Committee. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, so just checking in to see if anybody would like any of these items moved separately. And then I think superintendent wanted to say something about one of the items.
Okay. Dr. Negron?
Yes, before you move to approve these, I would like to pull. 1 second, I'm trying to find it, so I can give you the right number. I'm looking, we have one for Boundless.
Agreement.
Agreement 8. Boundless literacy.
Correct, so I would like to pull agreement number 8. So that I can bring it back to a little bit of more work before I bring it back to board for approval.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Negron. Mr. Wilcox?
All right, based on that, then I move that we approve the 3 abstracts, the remaining 11 agreements. I'm sorry, 10 agreements because number 8 was just pulled. The 3 purchase orders, the 5 contracts, the 18 amendments. And then we had a special F&O meeting, also the 1 abstract and the 5 agreements that are listed on the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Wilcox, Mayor Elicker?
I just had a quick question on the special F&O meeting items. Is this all of the outstanding early child care items that we needed to follow through on? Or are there any remaining ones? Do we know?
My understanding is that these were all of the ones that were in the pipeline. Yes. But that's my understanding. We had a question similar to that in the meeting, and that was the impression I had, that this was all of these. And these, as a reminder, these are the ones that are we're kind of a pass-through for a lot of these, and it's the Early Childhood Council in New Haven that selects the vendors, et cetera, and that this completes those.
And Dr. Negron, that is your understanding as well?
That is my understanding, but we are gonna go back and double, triple check.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that we are not holding up the process. We want to make sure that these funds that are coming through us are able to get to providers as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker, Dr. Negron. Mr. Goldson?
Don't we sometimes midway through the year or later in the year sometimes switch slots back and forth because some of these may not reach their maxes while others may need additional slots. So that may still happen, is that correct?
If I may, yes, adjustments could happen. There's also sometimes where, yeah, there's not enough slots in use at one, so they're reallocated to another group, in which case then there would be another amendment. But I think the question was referring to the core agreements and any amendments that are sitting out there now. So, but yeah, that could happen in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the F and O items with the exception of Agreement 8. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes,
Mr. Golton?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. Moving on to teaching and learning report, Dr. Joyner?
Actually, we don't have a report at this time. We did have a meeting. We had a really good science report, and we're gonna ask the science supervisor to make the report to the whole board.
Great, thank you, Dr. Joyner. Facilities Naming Committee report, Dr. Joyner?
I want to give a shout out again to Eric Schultz. We're gonna be getting the final draft of the document that we will use to see whether or not we get support for Dr. Garris and Mrs. Pappas, along with others who have been recommended as people deserving of being named, having one of our facilities within a building named after them, principally libraries, gyms, and foyers. Eric Schultz is a gift to us, and he and I will be sending the board something over the next couple of days. That is our final draft of the actual document. And I've been told by him as late as a few hours ago that we can actually set up Dr. Garris and Mrs. Pappas at the same time. He really is a phenomenal employee, and I thank him very much for that. And you'll be getting it pretty soon.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any questions or comments for Dr. Joyner? Okay, superintendent's report, Dr. Negron?
Yes, in your packet, you were provided a memo related to updates with the adult ed facilities. And I just wanted to add that, again, on November 13th, the second floor HVAC unit gasket valve caused major flooding inside of that facility. And due to that flooding on November 13th and 14th, we had to cancel classes. Classes then resumed virtually on 11/15. And we've done some work so that on 11/29, which is this week, to be sure that the ESL program and the GED program are able to hold post-testing. And that is going to be happening at the Connecticut State Community College Gateway. It was extremely important that happened so that the students can do their post-testing. So that has been arranged. Very grateful again to the Connecticut State Community College. And the goal is to resume classes in person in January. We're hoping that the facility will be fully repaired. If for some reason that is not the case, we will be working to disperse adult ed programs throughout our facilities. And I want to reiterate that there's no budget impact on the district because the landlord of the facility is liable for all of these repairs. So I just wanted to add that because that was not included in the memo that you received in your packet.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. Questions or comments, Dr. Negron? Mr. Golton?
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. McGraw said there was no financial impact. but actually they probably should be if this facility is not available to us for several months. I'm hoping that we're getting some sort of discount on that exorbitant rent that we're paying over there.
Mr. Golson, that is correct. In the event that we are not able to get back into the facility, there is language in the agreement that we have where we should be able to then discuss some savings for the time that we're not inside of the facility.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that we're gonna get back in the facility, but it could be 1 month, it could be 2 months, it could be 4 months. I mean, are we already starting to negotiate a reduction in our rent there? I mean, you know, it doesn't make sense to me that, I mean, this guy is paying us, I mean, we're paying this guy super high rates for that facility. I mean, he tripled the rate when the new owner took over. And I'm really hoping that whether it's 1 month or it's 2 months or it's 3 months, whatever it is, that we're getting a discount.
Mr. Lamb?
Thank you, Madam President. There is a provision within the lease that the landlord is required to give us equal or better space, depending upon how long we are without facilities. And there's also provisions in the lease that reduce our payment obligation to him in the event that we cannot get back into our original space. Those are currently in negotiation between Corporation Counsel and with the landlord and with the insurance adjusters to ensure that the financial obligation to the city is as minimal as possible, given the length of time that we're looking at for full repairs to be remediated. Yes, January is the goal, but we're trying to get this done as quickly as we can in the most appropriate way possible to make sure that we don't have to revisit the repairs. We want to make sure that there's testing in place for any mold. We want to make sure that the space is dried out completely and all of the reports are in place before we re-enter to make sure that there's enough time to be able to do all of those tasks. We've been in coordination with the landlord, the contractor, Corporation Counsel, and the insurance adjuster and the building owner to make sure that that happens. The provisions in the lease are being coordinated through Corporation Counsel to make sure that any financial obligation that is identified for the district is brought out as soon as possible. As of right now, we're being told that those obligations are none.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Golson?
Madam President, I really wish I could get a real clear and direct answer to this. And the question is real simple. I know that we don't have any financial obligations to repairing that building. Well, I shouldn't say I know, but I'm sure that we weren't silly enough to sign a lease that made us responsible for repairing that building when the mechanicals go down like that and damage it. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about our financial obligation to this landlord who is not providing us with a facility at this point. So if we're out of there, if we don't get back until January, that means December's gone. That's 1 month. And that could be several $100,000. I don't remember the details of this lease, but we're paying out the nose on this. So I want to make sure that if we're not in there in December, we're not paying the landlord for use of that building in December. And if we're not in there in January, then we're not paying the landlord for the use of that building in January and February and March and so on and so on. So is it clear? Because I didn't get a clear answer on that. Is it clear that if we are not in that building, that we are not paying rent to the landlord for use of that building?
I will have Attorney Alexiadis put together a memo for you that outlines exactly what our lease obligation is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Golson? Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Lamb for the information. I heard answers to those questions, and I'm glad that we're going to have it memorialized in a memo so that it'll be very clear and then we'll be able to take a look at it. And I'm also thinking it's great that at a very recent board meeting, this board approved the hiring of the architect to design the new space over on Bassett Street so that we can move this program into a building that befits it, and that we will be done with landlords. I think this is our last space that we're renting, or it's almost the last space. There might be a little part of 54 Meadow Street still. So we're closing out the leases and having better control of the spaces. And I think that's great that that's happening. So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to, does that conclude your report, Dr. Negron?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. We'll move on to the president's report, and I just have two quick items. And the first one is regarding committee appointments. In the next few weeks, I'll be reaching out to board members to discuss the committee appointments. So just please be thinking about whether you'd like to remain on your current committees or switch committees or add another committee. We'll be talking about that in the next few weeks so that we can nail down the details for our first meeting in January. The second item is the issue of rotating schools for our Board of Ed meetings. In the past, we rotated schools where we held the meetings. It seems like a lifetime ago, but if I remember correctly, every July we'd start at a new school. I've been having some discussions with some of the board members, and it's come up that maybe we switch every 3 or 6 months rather than once a year, so that we're in different communities throughout the year. We haven't nailed down that timeframe just yet, but I'm gonna be asking Dr. Negron to work with staff and make recommendations of schools that can easily accommodate the board meetings. And so that maybe we can start this either in January or February of this coming year. Okay. Questions or comments, Mayor Elicker?
I just had a quick suggestion that we should make sure that it's easy with all the technology.
Mhm.
And if it is a real hassle, maybe we shouldn't change this frequently.
Yeah, we've had those discussions
Okay,
already.
great.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Elicker. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the Head Start report. Mr. Wilcox?
So my 3 reports are gonna be quite brief. For Head Start, we, in lieu of our meeting, we had training with a trainer about the roles of the board, the role of the policy council, which is the mandated parent group that is part of the governing of the program, as well as also the role of the school district. So we had that training and it went well, and it was well attended and included people from the policy council as well, which was great.
Questions or comments for Mr. Wilcox?
And
Citywide school building report?
citywide school building report, the next meeting is December 14th. We have not met since our last board meeting.
And finance and operations?
Finance and operations, the 2 things I'll point out is there was Ms. Hannons and her team presented the most recent finance report. We're still looking at a deficit that needs to be mitigated, but that information is posted and it was put in our packets. They're still working on that. And I think if I recall correctly, this is the time of year where some of the numbers start to come in and become more clear, and they're able to come to the funds better. And so more and more, they're going to be getting a true picture of exactly where we are with our deficit. And then finally, I'll mention that the committee did move 3 information security related policy drafts. And I owe an email to Dr. Benitez and Ms. Jackson with those policies that will move on to the governance committee.
Questions or comments for Mr. Wilcox? Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Governance report, Dr. Benitez?
Yes, good evening, board members and public. We met today at our regular monthly meeting, and we discussed various things. One of those things is that we have decided that it's better to move our meetings to Tuesday. I was very ambitious about doing this on Mondays, and President Rivera did warn me that that was going to be tough, and I have been experiencing a very tough schedule. So we will start meeting on Tuesdays coming the new year. And the other thing that we have discussed is we didn't have a specific process for when a policy was submitted to the board and not adopted. And so part of the discussion today was to create, we discussed the content of a feedback form that we would give to the committee so that they understand what are the concerns of the board members. And so we will send it back to the committee for them to look at the recommendations and work on the policy. Based on those recommendations, we also are encouraging the committees to invite board members as needed, that they may want to listen to them specifically if they have the expertise or a strong concern that they may be able to shed some light for the committee so that they're clearer about how they may go about updating the policy. We also discussed that not all policies need to be updated, even though some of them are from the 90s or later, but not the recent years. If they are policies that still adhere to the law and to what we are doing as an organization, we want to update policies that are needed to be updated immediately. So you will see different numbers and different order of policies depending on the need to update immediately. And so those that are not in need to be updated immediately, we may not process as quickly. Again, we were very ambitious, and so I promise to provide the board with the information on where we are with that policy at currently and the new policy, so that people can quickly have their first reading and able to be ready for the second reading response. The next meeting will be January 22nd, which is still a Monday, but we may provide information for a different date, which will be the 23rd. We just have not put that through yet, but I want people to know. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Dr. Benitez? Okay, thank you, Dr. Benitez. Food Service Task Group report, Dr. Yarborough is not here. Does anyone have a report? Mr. Wilcox?
We haven't met since then, but there was a group that's been meeting to create plans for moving forward for the food gap. So I did want to just mention that. So this is some folks from United Way, from the group Witnesses to Hunger, and staff are working on making that program even better. So.
Questions or comments for Mr. Wilcox? Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
Madam President,
Mr. Goldson?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Have a great evening.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Vote? Yes. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for a great
Good
meeting.
night.
Right.
Good Good night.